I got a submission here, and the issue that is happening is that on a front flip or back flip, at the very end, the copter will roll over, even though there's not any roll input being given. So let's take a look at that. Here is an example of the issue happening. I'm going to play it back for you at 30% speed, just so you can see it happen. Flip forward. There you go. Yeah. So let's dig into that a little further. I've got the roll on top and the pitch on bottom, and we can see that as RC command comes up, the pitch gyro goes positive, indicating we're going through the roll. At some point, the copter starts to drop an arm, right? And if we play that back at like 5% speed, you can see that start to happen. By the way, my sync on this video may not be 100% perfect, but it's close enough. There, the arm is dropping. Since the arm is dropping, the PID controller jams this motor to full. It's trying to arrest the left roll. Now, there's a little bit of a problem here in that to arrest the left roll, we need to turn on the left two motors and turn off the right two motors. And also, we're trying to arrest the pitch movement because the pitch stick is also centered, right? So we need that the front two motors turned on and the back two motors turned off. So there's a conflict there. So this motor has gone to full, and these two motors, these remaining motors, have reduced their authority to maintain proportionality with this motor. And if we look at the motors trace, we can see that happen. So as this one goes to full, well, we don't see it hugely. I guess we see the red motor drop off. You can see that as the purple motor goes to full, the red motor drops back to maintain proportionality and accomplish what's being commanded. But the question that we need to ask is, why did that arm start to drop? And one thing that I noticed, let me bring the motors back actually. One thing that I notice is that in the moment before the issue happened, that motor did go to 0 and stay there for a minute. Well, not a minute, seconds. And that motor was at 0 while you were doing this front flip, which means air is rushing up to the propeller and opposing the propeller's motion. My first guess is going to be that your min throttle is too low and the motor stopped, basically. The prop stopped spinning and the arm started to drop. And then it took a second to recover. The motor didn't get going again quickly enough. But I do want to make sure that that's correct, because it does look like the motor goes to full. The motor sure seems like it started spiking before the gyro drops. That's interesting, but surely that can't be right, because what the motor is doing is correct. The arm is dropping and the motor is going to full to oppose that uncommanded motion. And that's why you see your P term go off the top of the chart here, because the P term is trying to correct for an error and it's failing to correct. You can tell it's failing to correct because all through this move the arm is still dropping and the P term is like, try harder, and the motor is like, giving it all she's got, Captain. Right? And it's only then at something changes at this point in time where the motor starts to have the desired effect and the gyro drops off. So one thing that is, it sure looks like that motor is climbing before the gyro starts to drop, which doesn't really seem possible, does it? Unless the flight controller can see into the future. So then we have to ask ourselves a question about causality. Did something cause the flight controller to command the motor to go from basically 0 to full throttle? And that resulted in maybe a desync. I'm not saying it was a desync, but what if it was a desync? So the flight controller says go from 0 to 100% throttle basically instantaneously. That desyncs the motor, which causes the arm to drop. Maybe. I don't think it's a desync though, because I've listened to the audio and it doesn't sound like a desync. Let's listen to it again. Let's go to 100%. Hello? Why do I have no audio? Audio. Yeah, it's a tough one. You don't hear a lot, do you? Yeah. I don't know. One more time. It all happened so fast I couldn't say. I don't think it's a desync. It doesn't feel like that to me. Maybe it is a desync though, because you know that's exactly what a desync looked like on my copter. I did a flip and it dropped an arm just like that. Okay. So what's your min throttle? 1026. Well, that is a low number. I'm running 1025 on my Little Beast though, and I know that these ESCs with the these very good ESCs, you're running Little Beast. Okay, well there you go. That's not the issue. I'm also running 1025 as my min throttle, and I have no trouble with them dropping out. So anyway, my current best guess is going to be is it at the very moment? Yes. It's at the very moment that you start returning the stick. Oh, that's gotta have something to do with it. That can't be a coincidence. That can't be a coincidence. Oh, I got a theory. Is it really at the very moment you start? Yes. Yes. Oh, I got it. I think I got it. Okay, so you start lowering the stick, and as you start lowering the stick, the front motors spool up because the flight controller is trying to end the front flip, right? The front motors spool up, but this motor, the front left motor, fails to make thrust. So there's two things I think that could cause that. Yeah, this explains why the motors led the gyro. The motors started moving because you started centering the stick. When the motor started moving, this motor slipped somehow. And this arm started to drop, and that's why your PID goes off the chart, and you dropped an arm. So, when you recentered the stick, this motor changed suddenly. It slipped. Maybe it's a slipping prop. Maybe you have a loose prop nut. Or maybe it's a desync situation. Those are the two things I can think of that are likely to cause this. And that's why you dropped the arm. And then the situation recovered itself, and you got back to flying. Okay, that was it. That was the one thing I couldn't explain, was why the motors start climbing before the arm drops. If the arm starts to drop, I would expect the motor to start climbing to correct it, but that's not what was happening. The motor started climbing because you recentered the stick, and they were trying to stop the roll. This was completely normal. You're recentering the stick, the PID controller is like, okay, stop, and the motors are like, sorry. So it's this front left motor has a problem. Maybe it's a loose prop, or maybe it's a desync on the ESC or something. I would bet you that if you were doing a backflip, you would see it on one of the back two motors. You would see the same thing happen. And the arm if you're doing a backflip and the same thing happens on the front left motor, then I'm completely mystified. So I would say that if you're not already running medium-high timing, go to medium-high timing. You are running... You don't say what motors you're running. Multi-shot. No, you don't say what motors you're running. Sorry. if you're running, I would say try medium-high timing, or I don't actually know what timing you're at either. So maybe you're already at medium-high, in which case maybe you should try medium. I don't know. Yeah. And then the other thing is check your props are tight. Yeah, that's where I would go with this. You got a bad ESC, I think. You got well, not a bad ESC. Maybe it's misconfigured, or maybe you have a loose prop or something like that. Maybe it's even a motor with like a magnet loose or something. Although I don't think so. But yeah, it's this front left motor that's the problem. I bet you a nickel if you were to replace the front left motor in ESC. Not that you should, but if you were, then I bet this problem would go away. Except it also happens on backflips, in which case it wouldn't be the front left motor. Okay, so then it must be like a timing issue, because you can't have 4 loose props. It's got to be the timing in the ESCs. Okay, that's what I'm going with. That's my final answer. Timing in the ESCs. That's my maybe a desync. Okay, that's my final answer. I hope it's correct. Check back and let me know. In the meantime, happy flying.